Life 30, your 30-day journey to creating the best life possible for yourself. You can just watch this video, or if you want to sign up for the whole series and get the free bonus companion worksheets that go with this video, check the link in the description below. All right, today is day 12, and we're going to learn how you can overcome your stress.
If somebody is, we were mentioning earlier, if somebody is really stressed out, they're not stressed out for no reason. It's because they're focusing on something that makes them feel stressed. They often, when they're focusing on it, it changes the body. You start to feel tight. You start to feel a certain way. And then they use language like, I don't know what to do. Why am I so overwhelmed? So 3 things control how you feel every moment. What you focus on, what you do with your body. If your shoulders are down, if you're breathing like, it's not hard to figure out. You're not going to be in a very resourceful state. If I take that same person and I change their body radically, I get them to talk at a different tempo. I get them to move their body differently. I've taught this for, 41 years. 3 years ago at Harvard, they did a study on power postures where they showed that if you stand like this with your hands on your hips like Superman or Wonder Woman, or if you lean back like this like the guy is obnoxious at the office and do this, it literally changes your testosterone by 25% within 2 minutes. It reduces cortisol, which you know is the stress hormone, by 30%, and you're 33% more likely to take an action. So if we change what we focus on, if we change the way we use our body, if we change our language patterns, we'll instantly feel different. Think of how do people use their body when they're worried versus when they're excited. Yeah. If you learn to use your body first, use your focus first, you can literally change how you feel in moments, and then you develop new habits where you start to feel good all the time, and it isn't some phony fake pump up. It's literally the way you've conditioned your body. Just like being fit as an athlete, you want to be emotionally fit.
As I said, 70% of the time, people live in stress, and living in stress is living in survival. Now, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress. You know, a deer gets chased by a pack of coyotes. When it outruns the coyotes, it goes back to grazing and the event is over. And the definition of stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance, out of homeostasis. The stress response is what the body innately does to return itself back to order. So you're driving down the road, someone cuts you off, you jam on the brakes, you may give them the finger, and then you settle back down and the event is over and boom, now everything's back to normal. But what if it's not a predator that's waiting for you outside the cave, but what if it's your coworker sitting right next to you, and all day long you're turning on those chemicals because they're pushing all your emotional buttons. When you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease, because no organism in nature can live in emergency mode for that extended period of time. It's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease, long-term effects. Human beings, because of the size of the neocortex, we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. We can think about our problems and turn on those chemicals. That means then our thoughts could make us sick. So if it's possible that our thoughts could make us sick, is it possible then our thoughts could make us well? And the answer is absolutely yes. So then, what are the emotions that are connected to survival? Let's name them. Anger, aggression, hostility, hatred, competition, fear, anxiety, worry, pain, suffering, guilt, shame, unworthiness, envy, jealousy. Those are all created by the hormones of stress. And psychology calls them normal human states of consciousness. I call those altered states of consciousness. So then we tend to remember those traumatic events more because in survival, you better be ready if it happens again. And when the survival gene is switched on, you could have 10 really great things that happen to you in your day. And you just have one bad thing that happens and you cannot take your attention off that unhappy thing because the survival gene is switched on. Many years ago, after the DNA helix was discovered by Watson and Crick, they said the blueprints of life, all diseases are created from genes. It turns out less than 5%, more like 1% of people on the planet are born with a genetic condition like type 1 diabetes or Tay-Sachs disease or sickle cell anemia. The other 95 to 99% are created by lifestyle and by choices. You can take 2 identical twins, exact same genome. One dies at 51, the other one dies at 85. Same gene, different environment. So all of a sudden they said, we lied. That was wrong. It's not genes that create disease. It's the environment that signals the gene that creates disease. Well, okay. But that's not the whole truth, too, because you could have two people working side by side in the same factory. One gets cancer after being exposed to a carcinogenic for 25 years. Both working for 25 years, the other one has no cancer at all. So there must be some internal order that would cause one person to not get it while another one does. So is it possible then, if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in the environment is called an emotion, can you signal the gene ahead of the environment by embracing an elevated emotion? We've done the research on this. We measured 7,500 different gene expressions in a group of people that came to an advanced event for 4 days. And we had them doing a seated meditation, a walking meditation, a laying down meditation, a standing meditation. And at the end of 4 days, just 4 days, the common 8 genes that were upregulated, 2 genes to suppress cancer cells and tumor growth, 2 genes for neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons in response to novel experiences and learning, the gene that signals stem cells to go to damaged areas and repair them, the gene for oxidative stress was upregulated. We started seeing all these genes that are very, very healthy to cause the body to flourish. Imagine if people were doing that for 3 months. We also measured telomeres, the little shoestrings on the end of DNA that tell us our biological age. We asked people to do the work, meditation, 5 out of 7 days for 60 days. Measure their telomeres that determine their biological age. 60 days later, 74% of the people lengthened their telomeres. 40% significant change. 20% a very remarkable change. That means that they got a little bit of their life back. If it had lengthened by 10%, they got 10% of their life back.
It turns out that one of the best stress relievers on the planet is something that most of us don't ever do, and that is seek out time with friends when we feel totally stressed out. When you're doing twice as much work as you normally do, or you're feeling twice as much stress as you normally feel, studies at Harvard show that what you need is you need to see your friends twice as much. Now, Shawn Achor is a really famous researcher and best-selling author at Harvard, and he studied this phenomenon. He looked at people that were stressed at schools and in call centers and in the military and in banks and in almost every single industry. What he discovered is that the most successful people, the people that were the best at selling, the people that were the most resilient, the people that had the best ability to deal with stress when times got tough were the ones that saw their friends the most. It was the people with the tightest social connections that had the ability to weather the storms that life throw at us. I want you to write down 3 people. 3 people that when you hang out with them, you feel energized. That when you have plans with them, you're excited about seeing them. When this video ends, reach out to them. That's right, pick up the phone, send them a text. I want you to invite them to do something. Go out to lunch, go for a walk in the woods, get a cup of coffee, go out to dinner. Even if you're not stressed out, I guarantee you at least one of the 3 people that you're going to reach out to needs you. If you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, if you have any kind of mental health condition, it's nothing to be ashamed of and it's nothing to hide and it's something to hit head on with. There's one thing that if you did every single day, no joke, it would make an extraordinary difference in whatever mental health issue you're struggling with, and that is exercise. And the reason why I say this is not based on my own personal experience. It's based on the fact that I think it's the American Psychiatric Association. This is coming from Dr. John Ratey, a friend of mine who has written a ton of books about not only ADHD, but also the benefits of exercise and what it has on your brain. But he's also a professor at Harvard and a practicing clinician. And this is his area of expertise. And one of the things that they now mandate as a diagnosis for anybody with depression or anxiety, or any mental illness, frankly, is you've got to exercise every day. And the reason you've got to exercise every day is because what we know about human beings is that when you physically move, your physiology changes, and that changes your brain. Getting your heart rate up, getting outside, breathing, feeling connected, getting out of your house, which may make you feel depressed and trapped. Doing that every day, that physical push. You don't have to run. You don't have to go to an aerobics class. Get outside with your dog in the woods. Walk with a good friend for 2 or 3 miles. Doing that every single day not only moves your body, which changes your mind, it gets you out of your physical environment, which is one of the things that people with depression tend to have a hard time doing. And it also creates a bit of momentum and a bit of a routine in your life. You take on just that single thing. Get outside and exercise every single day as if your life depends upon it. Because you know what? It does. Your brain needs it. Your body needs it. Your mental health needs it.
There's been thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of warriors that have been in very stressful situations and faced evil and faced death much worse than the situation I'm in or you're in that we might consider stressful. And I even did this when I was overseas, when I was on deployment, when I was a combat leader. I was feeling stress. And you know what? We took casualties and it was awful and it was heartbreaking. But there were other soldiers and warriors throughout time that have been in much worse situations. Gettysburg or Vicksburg or the Battle of the Bulge. And all those horrible situations, they prove really that humans can withstand almost unimaginable stress. Which meant to me that I could too. And you can. And the first step for me is doing that, taking that look to gain some perspective. And then in order to gain perspective, you got to do something that we already talked about. You've got to detach. You've got to detach from the problems or the stress that you're experiencing so that you can get that perspective of them. Now, there's a couple different types of stress. Now, if it's something that you can control that's causing you stress, well, why aren't you getting control of it? Now, there's also stress that's caused by things that you cannot control. And if you remember talking earlier about artillery and how horrible that was, and what made it so horrible was that there's no control over it. So if you can't control something and you can't get control of it, you have to at least embrace what you can. And I'm not saying you're going to embrace artillery shelling, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to things like artillery, or for us in Ramadi, it was IEDs. And we could do everything we could do to mitigate that risk, but eventually there's only so much you can do, and you cannot completely eliminate it. But you can't control it, so why are you going to worry about it? Why are you going to stress about it? If there's something that's completely beyond your control, you've got to detach from it and not let yourself get stressed about it. And on top of that, if it's something that you can't control, how can you look at it in a different light? How can you see it in a way that you could actually take advantage of it? How can you take that stress and make it into some kind of ally? You know, the chaos of combat is something that I couldn't control, but I had to embrace it so I could try and figure out how to take advantage of it. So when it comes to stress, don't fight it. Turn it on itself and use it. Use it. Use it to make yourself sharper and more alert. And use it to make yourself think more and learn more and get better. And use that stress as a catalyst to make yourself better. If you want to learn to deal with stress, put yourself in stressful situations that are under some kind of control. You know, even something like paintball. You know, we do gigs at Echelon Front where we put people through what we call FTXs, where you go out and you're going to fire. We usually use airsoft because it's a little bit more it's a little easier to work with. But actually what we started using now is we've got these high-end laser tag guns. And so that's what we use, and they are super effective. They're awesome. They're awesome training tools. Like if we would have had them, if they would have existed when I was in the SEAL teams, I would have used them then because they're that good. So we use those and we put people in stressful situations. Go hit this target. There's bad guys. There's, people are going to get shot. There's people yelling. Put yourself in stressful situations and learn to detach. Put yourself in stressful situations with the purpose of learning to detach and stepping back mentally to figure out what's going on.
I think the first thing we must all do at some point in our maturity is decide not to be a stress case. There has to be an intentional decision at some point in our lives where we say, look, I'm not going to be this stressed anymore. I'm allowing too much stress into my life. And please notice the words I'm using here. I'm allowing too much stress into my life. Most stress is not, quote unquote, real. No one hands you a plate of stress. It's not something you see and we can transact and exchange. It's something we make up in our mind. We make things stressful that may or may not be or have any cause to be stress-inducing. One thing that could stress you out might not be a stressful thing to anybody else. So that proves we're making it up. And since we're making it up, we should decide what we're going to do in the future. Are we going to always be stressful people or not? I know that sounds so silly, but I made that decision when I was young. I was 20 years old. And I said, look, I don't want to be a stressful person anymore. I used to stress about getting everything right and getting good grades. And I'd stress about, pleasing people and stress about, did I fit in? I'd stress about college. I'd stress about, and at some point I said, all this is made up. Matter of fact, most stress is coming from usually one of two things. First is a false time crunch that we perceive. We think we only have so much time, so everything becomes stressful. Oh my God, I gotta get this done. I gotta get this done. I got this done. And we're reacting our lives to really false deadlines. Someone asks you for something, you think you have to get it to them right away. You probably don't. It's probably not a real deadline. And unless you ask them, when is the real deadline on this? I mean, the point in which everything crumbles and falls apart. If you don't get it then, what would happen? What is the worst thing that would happen if you didn't get it that exact time? I'm crazy about this in my life. If someone says, well, Brendan, I need this by Thursday, I say, okay, if you need it by Thursday, is Thursday the day everything would explode and fall apart if you didn't get it? And they're like, no, Monday would be fine. And I just bought myself Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and part of day Monday. I just bought 5 days by asking when the real deadline is. Because most people, they say they want something from you when they want it, not when they need it. So your job to help deal with just the time crunch that stress can feel like is asking, when is the real deadline? And all these things that you're stressed out about, do they really need to be handled right now, this immediate second? Would it be okay if you created a plan and you handled them over the next couple days, next couple weeks, next couple months? When you actually realize the unbelievable amount of time we all have as humans, and how much more time we have when we become focused, diligent, intentional, disciplined, then we're not so much stressed anymore. It's like, I will get to that when the time is appropriate for that. Before that, I've got other things.
I created a method. The components are breathing, mindset, and cold exposure. Gradual, non-forced cold exposure. And that's to optimize the mind-body connection.
Wim has figured out ways, namely through breath work and through exposure to cold, to take conscious control over aspects of his physiology that, for most people, they simply can't tune into and control.
The cold, my warm friend, it brings about a whole lot of more energy, and that together with breathing makes you so powerful. But then you lose your wife and it all rumbles down. 4 children I had with my wife, and I was to be with her forever. She was the love of my life. She died. She suicided. It's a black hole within yourself. It breaks your heart and you don't know why, but the train of a daily life is going on, and you gotta catch up, otherwise you lose it. So I had to be there for my children, and yes, we created a new nest. My children made me survive in that time, but nature healed my wounds. The cold gave me a direct understanding of deeper breathing and how to heal a broken heart. Then I went and did all kinds of remarkable challenges. Apparently, they found it very remarkable and great and spectacular. So I came in contact with television. One after the other, they challenged me more. Hey, go swim 50 meters under the ice. Go swim 100 meters under the ice. Climb Mount Everest in shorts. That led up that the scientists became curious. Hey, what this man is doing is not possible physiologically.
The science of what Wim Hof method does is one of the primary interests of my lab now, because it is so powerful and it's been shown to be powerful in the immune system, and we believe it will also hold some real potential for treatment of neurologic diseases.
And this breathing technique brings you right into the deepest part of our physiology. Anybody can do it. So you become the alchemist of your own chemistry.
Being an entrepreneur is about being a problem solver, right? What is selling? Selling is not convincing. Selling is helping. As tech entrepreneurs here, if you're going to a customer, whether it's a consumer or you're in B2B, either you're making your customer's life easier, either you're reducing your stress, or you're making it harder and you're increasing their stress. I mean, over the years, I think some of the things I've come to learn, particularly dealing with some of these Shark Tank companies, is one of the greatest skill sets that an entrepreneur, employee, salesperson can have is reducing stress. If you find that when you go to work, stress increases the minute you walk in the door, you've got a problem. If you have an employee and the minute they walk in the door, you have a problem and they have a problem. And what I've found is the best companies, the best employees that I have, the best investments that I have are the people who reduce stress, because those are the people we don't want to give up. They may not, they don't make the most noise, they don't always get the biggest paychecks, they don't always close the biggest deals, but when there's problems that need to be solved, they're already working on them before you're even aware of them. Those are the people that we love, and those are the things, reducing stress. If you set in your mind goals as an entrepreneur for your company, one, keeping your, selling and keeping your customers very happy. Two, staying ahead of the curve with your competitors. And three, reducing stress of everybody around you, all your stakeholders, you're going to be successful. Because if you think about all your personal experiences, would you rather do business with somebody who creates stress, or do you want to do business with the person who reduces stress? It's an easy answer, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't follow through in that.
When I was growing up, I had met my guru when I was about 21, and I was going to join his monastic order, which was in Hawaii. I was at that time living in Western Australia and studying in university. And I remember in my last year of engineering, I was feeling extremely stressed. I had a thesis which I'd been working on for a year and a half that I needed to complete. In the next month, I had about 7 or 8 examinations that I had to pass in order to graduate as an engineer. I was the president of the youth group of our temple over there, the local temple over there, and we were organizing a lot of different events. And I was also dancing as part of a dance company that I was involved in, and they were also putting up a big show, so we were rehearsing almost every night. And I remember emailing my guru saying, Gurudev, I'm really stressed. I have all these things going on, and I'm stressed. He emailed me back, and I don't remember the exact words that he used, but he emailed me back and said, the reason you're stressed is because you don't keep your awareness on one thing at a time. And I'll be absolutely honest with you, ever since that day, I've never felt stressed anymore. And I know it's a very bold proclamation to make, but it's true. Because I clearly understood what he said to me at that point. Whenever I was dancing, I was thinking about my thesis. And when I was working on my thesis, I was thinking about the exams I had to do. When I was working on my exams, when I was studying for my exams, I was thinking about the youth group. And wherever I was thinking about something else. Anxiety comes because we allow awareness to drift away from the present moment and go into the future or into the past in an uncontrolled way. So the past and the future are not bad things as long as we indulge in them or we enter them with the aim to learn from them. But if we just allow awareness to travel into the past and into the future all the time, it creates anxiety. And we do that because we're afraid. Anxiety comes out of a sense of fear where we allow awareness to go into the future. We create a situation that hasn't happened. We bring it back into the present and start living it as it has already happened. You keep repeating the process over and over and over again. You build anxiety. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick. You think in the future, what if I get sick? Then what happens? Oh my God, I'm going to get sick. And then you bring back the present and you start living that. 5 minutes later, you let your awareness go into the future and you think to yourself, I'm not going to get better, I'm going to get sick. And then you bring awareness back into the present again and you start worrying about it. You keep repeating this process over and over again and you build anxiety. So the way to overcome stress and anxiety is to really control where your awareness goes. Every time your awareness goes into the future or into the past in an uncontrolled way, bring it back to the present again. And just do this exercise. Be mindful of this throughout the entire day. Don't let your awareness go into the past or into the future in an uncontrolled way.
One of the things you said is that it's good to kind of explore your boundaries when it comes to fear. This is something actually that my meditation teacher has said to me before, and it made me realize I think I need to get in there and start pushing it a little bit in this in the tank because it will help me in lots of areas of my life. Because when you don't test those boundaries, your life becomes smaller and smaller.
Yeah,
and that happens to people with panic.
I think it happens just people in general, and I think it's one of the reasons why people fall into panic is because they don't have enough experience with stressful situations to the point where they could just relax and just let it happen. And that's one of the things one of the reasons why I think martial arts training is very good for people, not just for the self-defense aspect of it, but for the aspect of just dealing with stressful situations on a regular basis to the point where you're very comfortable with them. And then you realize that the consequences of this it's not really as bad as you think it is. Like most people are terrified of physical confrontation, but when you have physical confrontation on a regular basis, especially through my favorite, which is jiu-jitsu training, because there's no striking, so you don't get hit in the head. You're not worried about brain damage or any of that stuff. It's just basically grappling. But that through the continual process of testing yourself and stress and regular life stresses sort of become diminished. Most of what people do is what we're doing right now. Most of what people do is sit down.
But is that because they don't feel like running around? Because some people, like people who exercise, generally, you have to put in a little bit of effort to make yourself go exercise. But a lot of people who are overweight and sick don't have enough energy to do that.
I don't know about that. Some of them maybe, but I think some of them just don't have discipline. There's an issue with that as well. There's also an issue with momentum. You're not used to doing it. It's not a part of your life. It's not something that you're accustomed to, pushing yourself. There's been many days where I didn't want to work out. I just didn't feel like I had the energy, and I just forced myself. And I think there's very few people out there that know how to force themselves. That's a learned. That's a learned skill. It's that kind of discipline and focus. You have to have like real rigid requirements of yourself, where you don't allow yourself to back out of things, and you don't allow yourself to slack off. And I don't think people put those kind of requirements on themselves as if it's. It is a daily principle of life, like what you must get done. You know, you must brush your teeth, you must exercise for 45 minutes. And if you did that, I think you'd be healthier and happier, and your body would perform more smoothly. And if you require your body to do things like that, I think it rises to the occasion. There are very few people that have that kind of discipline. So because of that, they come up with excuses. And excuses are a giant part of the problem. It's not simply a physical health issue. There's also mental aspects of it, and discipline's a big one. I just know